first film of the Lord of the Rings trilogy opened in December 2001, it quickly became a worldwide pop culture phenomenon, and the fifth highest grossing film of all time. For the cast, the journey began with a gamble.
Everybody had very high expectations, but very real concerns that it wouldn't necessarily pay off. So it was a gamble, it was a risk.
It's very difficult to tackle a book of this magnitude and a book that is so well loved by other people. So it wasn't completely a sure thing, but we knew it would be amazing.
This summer, or winter in New Zealand, the cast reunited after more than a year apart to shoot additional footage for The Two Towers.
It's strange. On the one hand, it feels like we've never left.
I mean, these guys, they haven't even learnt their lines. They've only got like 3 lines.
We got these lines about 15 minutes ago.
Shh. We don't talk about that.
It's weird because this time coming back, I was so excited. I came on the set and every single person was here.
It's a reunion. We get to see everybody again. It's a great feeling.
I had a slight anxiety about it coming back over in the plane, but once we put the feet back on, the wig was on, Dom was there, it wasn't a problem at all, you know?
When I saw Bill this time, he'd grown his hair for this film he was doing, and he looked the most like he looked when I first met him, which was kind of strange, you know, because we were going back to the place where we first met, and
I haven't aged a day.
not a day.
Peter hasn't tried to make a carbon copy of film 1. He's built a greater and more comprehensive world.
Orlando Bloom entered Peter Jackson's world just after graduating drama school in London.
I was in my apartment and I got a call from my agent just saying, oh, you've been offered Legolas in Lord of the Rings. I sort of phoned her about 6 times, like afterwards, just going, did you just call me and tell me I got a role in Lord of the Rings? And then, I mean, that's like the most memorable phone call I've ever had. I'd never been to New Zealand in my life. It was like being at an adventure camp or something, you know, horse riding, archery, sword play. It was like, you know, every boy's dream. An 18-month shoot is just unbelievable. There were times when you felt like exhausted, you know, physically and then mentally exhausted. But, you know, we were just, everyone would sort of help pull each other through. It felt like we were riding some wild horse and everyone was just trying to grab a rein the whole time, trying to keep it going.
For Orlando, who was called on to do his own stunts, horseback riding, and fights, the experience was all the more amazing because just 2 years earlier, he fell out of a 3-story window and broke his back.
I had this very narrow escape and basically they operated on me. Their first diagnosis was that I may not walk again. I walked out of hospital on crutches within 13 days. I mean, I was just a very lucky young man. It was crazy, you know, to think that here I was just a year out of a life-changing accident, really, and playing this huge physical role.
I've been quite homesick on this film, I think more than anybody else, because everybody else has been in, you know, the Fellowship, and they all have these really tight bonds. Arwen in the films is quite separate from everybody, and I'm on my own a lot.
She brought the feminine, elven energy. She was our princess, if you know what I mean.
It is like being a fairy princess in a funny kind of way for me to be able to get dressed up in these amazing, feminine, really, really feminine costumes.
Liv's transformation into Arwen was a daily 3-hour ritual.
First she puts glue, then the ear, and the ears are gelatin, so they melt. We can only use them once, right? Mm-hmm. It's very weird that it's winter here right now and it's summer at home. That was the weirdest. I completely forgot about that. And the day that I was packing, I just went, this is my dad's coat, which I brought with me, and I'm really happy I did because it's keeping me very warm.
Up to at least 9 in the morning.
This is the Dumbo shot. Not Arwen, but Dumbo. I come to Aragorn in a vision at one point when he's wounded and defeated, and I come to him in a way to encourage him.
This is a dream. The boy without a thought.
I enjoy speaking it so much. mean, I wish all my lines were in Elvish.
No one had an earlier start each day than Elijah Wood and Sean Astin. A big part of their Lord of the Rings experience took place before the sun even rose.
The dark, yeah. Most of my call times were in the 5 o'clock hour. You get to set, it's dark, you don't really know where you are.
Coffee would be fantastic.
You'd get out and you'd see it for what it really was once the sun came up. I saw a lot of sunrises. And then I got home and I haven't seen a sunrise since.
It was as significant a transition for Elijah and Sean as it was for their characters.
It was an amazing kind of parallel experience. The story and the separations that happened and how that was reflected in the actual shooting schedule. Elijah and I really bonded. We really became more than friends, almost brothers, really.
I've learned so much about Sean at every hour of the day. It's interesting, Sean's kind of inconsistent. There'll be days where he'll come in and he'll be really tired, you know? Some days he'll come in with the most brilliant energy. He'll start talking politics. He'll want to have serious discussions.
So there's usually a direct correlation between how much coffee I've had to drink.
Off to the next bus. Oh my God, this is an amazing morning.
I was 17 when I left for New Zealand.
How lucky are we to be in New Zealand to see this?
And I didn't miss home. I missed home in the sense that I wanted to see my family. I missed my family. But I loved my life. I had a house, I had a car. I became familiar with the town of Wellington that we were based in. Because I did so much growing in New Zealand. It left such an impact on me.
Sean and Elijah started filming The Two Towers around 4 months into the production schedule, about the time when most movies have already wrapped.
And then I realized, oh no, we've got another year and several months. And I definitely had at least one moment of thinking, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
Sean's worst day came on the 197th day of filming, when he and Elijah were helicoptered into a remote location.
You'd be in a state of panic. We were filming on a lake, and we had divers actually going down, looking at the bottom of the lake bed to make sure that it was okay for somebody to go in there. That'll be good for Sean. Can't just come back a step. And action! Mr. Frodo! But what they didn't find is the one piece of glass. He didn't yell or anything, he just went still.
I knew instantly that it was a substantial injury.
Let's sit him down and have a look at his foot.
Oh, man.
This sharp, jagged piece of glass, it literally pierced his foot, and underneath, right on the sole of his foot, and came out the top.
Just clean it out.
I'll never forget hearing the medic say, oh yeah, it's bleeding quite freely now.
Will that come off?
So we had a helicopter come rushing in to grab him and fly him back.
"24 hours and 20 stitches later, Sean was back on set. And today's event would become one of the endless memories along the 3-year journey.
It's incalculable how much of an impact the making of these films has had on my life.
It's an experience of a lifetime. I'll never have another experience like this.
She's very different from Arwen. You could say she might even be more right as a person for him to be with. There's a great affection between them.
I first saw Viggo and I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? Oh, and he's playing Aragorn. Oh, this is going to be so easy to fall in love with this man. He's a man of incredible integrity, and he also looks absolutely smashing as Aragorn. I defy all women who watch this film not to fall in love with him. The first time we drove to the Edoras set was about an hour and a half drive, as I remember. And I slept for about the first hour, and then they woke me up and said, wait, you have to see. And as you come over the hill, suddenly, there it is, right in front of you.
The remote location selected for Edoras posed a daunting challenge for Dan and Chris Henna, who head up the art department.
You know, it was an hour's drive from the nearest town. And we had to build all through the winter, so we had snow and ice, and we encountered winds of up to 180 kilometres an hour.
I think our guys were down there about 8 months. We feel pretty proud of what we've done.
The steps come down here.
It's taken 8 months to build, and we really got not much more than 8 days to shoot. Then it'll be gone. Then it'll always survive on film.
One thing about the location of Edoras was the wind and the weather. The elements just, boom, straight there. It was like a magnet to it. So we were constantly being like blown around the place. But that was part of the enjoyment.
When we arrived to film, it's just such a glorious location. I'm sure the cast gave a performance they would never have given in a stage.
Having Edoras as a real place and not having it as a model is a gift. All that stuff helps actors in their job because they don't have to imagine it.
The process of Helm's Deep itself, shooting that for months, meant that Orlando, John Rhys-Davies, myself, and the stunt team, plus hundreds of extras, were stuck together in this horrible, inhospitable, rocky, wet, dark, cold place.
Guys were falling over in their suits, because they were soaking wet and it was so cold that they were getting pneumonia and stuff like that.
We were totally isolated from the rest of the movie-making team, from the experience that others were having in the sunshine. We were just always like sort of shivering and banged up. You can see it on people's faces how tired they were. Everybody had this sort of vampire life where we were passed out from exhaustion. And you go outside in the street and you're all sort of pale and scratched up and cross-eyed, and you recognize it blocks away. Oh, there's one. They're like these creatures of the night. If you sat down for just a second on a rock and just sort of let yourself drift, and you're sort of seeing all these wet and tired extras, and stunt guys are limping and not admitting what pain or exhaustion they were in. You couldn't, in good conscience, do anything less than, your best. And that's really what Helm's Deep is about. It's the effort made, how the battle is fought. It was a microcosm of what the whole movie was about in a way. Just this egging each other on to go past your limits. I mean, I hated it, I enjoyed it, I will always remember it. Everybody earned their stripes on that, on Helm's Deep.
So they go from being prisoners of war to like the very bosom of nature. It kind of helps them become hobbits again.
Bosom.
Did I say bosom?
Yeah. It's bizarre how the story mirrors our life. It could quite easily have happened that I became a lot closer with, Vigo, or Orlando, or Ian. When I broke away to do my separate story with Billy, I would always think, oh, well, it's great, but what a shame I'm not with, the person that I feel I've connected to the most. But it just so happened that I did connect with Bill probably the most.
That is very aggressive, Tom.
For Billy and Dom, like the rest of the cast, the New Zealand capital city of Wellington became their adopted home.
So this is Fidel's, one of the best cafes in Wellington. This is my second breakfast.
What about second breakfast? Like here we have kumara and bacon together. Me and Dom, we're now together, but not like that.
Second stop of the day. real groovy records, I mean, we're in makeup for, you know, an hour and a half. You need something to wake you up, and for young guys, well, for anyone really, but certainly for us young guys, it seemed to be that music was, you know, the big motivator in the morning.
Dom recommended this for me. It's Icelandic music. I think it's, they play the nose flute. A very difficult instrument to master.
Billy and I are very competitive in terms of pool.
At this juncture, I'd just like to mention something. The sound man, who you would find over there, stuck this piece of tape onto my chest because apparently the hair was making a noise. He didn't ask me if he could stick it on. He just stuck it on.
Can I rip it off?
No, you can't rip it off.
He's allowing me to pull off the masking tape that was put over his shirt to stop his microphone from causing noises. Bill? Ready? Ready, mate?
Mm-hmm.
In 3, 2, 1. Check it out, check it out, check it out. There's a few there.
That was nice, do it again.
It's wild to think about the person that I was before, and, you know, friends that I have back in Manchester have said, you know, God, you've really changed, and I completely embraced that, you know. I said, yeah, of course I have. I've been to the other side of the world for 2 years, and I had more experiences in 2 years than I've had in the whole of my life.
Very early on, we discarded any thought of using an actor, simply because Gollum's appearance, as he's described in the book, is very emaciated. He's incredibly skinny and thin. He's almost more frog-like in a way than human. But we wanted Gollum to be a stronger actor as Elijah Wood.
Mustn't stop here. Come on.
And Andy does the voice of Gollum, but more importantly than that, all of the scenes he was on set with Elijah Wood and Sean Astin. And then we would replace Andy with the, you know, with the proper-looking computer character.
No! You know the way to Mordor.
Frodo sees within Gollum sort of a mirror image of himself, what he could become if the ring were to take hold.
Impulsive, he sweats when he sees the ring. He can't take his mind off it.
Perhaps no day of filming would challenge Andy more than the one that called for him to jump into a river and catch a fish.
We woke up on the morning of the shoot and discovered that it had actually snowed overnight. And we had a problem because the schedule was very tight and we couldn't stay in Ruapehu an extra day.
So Jackson asked the crew to get rid of the snow by 1 o'clock that afternoon.
I've got to try and melt out this whole basin. This basin you see behind us here is the area that I've got to try and clean up. We want to see all rocks through here, no snow.
The strategy is threefold. Use huge fans and heaters to blow hot air over the area. Try to melt the snow with fire hoses. And break up the frozen river with shovels.
Sort of just past the fire hoses.
The river is now flowing, but the water Andy must jump into is still glacial cold.
Now, normally the suit I wear is very, very thin, and you know, it's got a lot of flexibility, and I can move. This wetsuit was about 3 inches thick. It was like I looked like a Michelin man, and then they pulled the headpiece on it, and I couldn't move. I was like this.
Just give it a couple of beats after action, and then go for the fish. Okay. All right, good.
And look at Shauna, it's like, he's freaking me out, dude. The water's freezing cold.
And action!
The moment I dived in the water when Peter said action, I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. It was that cold.
But that was good for you, Andy. Just one more.
I think we did it like 4 times. That was mental. Andy was crazy.
And all I was thinking was, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Come on, keep going, keep going.
In the movie, Gollum's dive into the river will be Andy's performance. But perhaps no actor has undergone so much when his own flesh and blood will never be seen on the screen. Throughout production, Viggo never missed the opportunity to further improve his writing skills.
His stamina is just incredible. I mean, the man works every single day. He gets 1 day a week off. And even on his day off, he'll go horseback riding.
The more you're one with the horse, and the more you work with the horse, the more likely if something does go wrong on the set, or he gets spooked, or he's having a bad day, you can make the adjustments and hopefully get the shots that are needed.
Here we go.
It was probably my most scary moment in the whole shoot.
The river's rapids turned out to be stronger than anticipated.
The current just pushed me down to the bottom, and I couldn't come out of it. Put out my eyes, and I was way down. I was, I don't know, 15 feet down. I was running out of oxygen. Finally, I guess I kicked against a rock or something, and it just pushed me just enough away, and I just sort of popped up. It's like one of those things you read about where you're like, oh, wow, this is it. This is how it's gonna end.
For all the remarkable events the cast experienced during filming, they had at least as many unforgettable adventures away from set.
We arrived in Queenstown, which is basically the adventure capital of New Zealand, and we were given memos saying, please do not get involved. We love you guys and we don't want you to get injured. And it was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is far too much fun to be had, I managed to persuade Dom to come and do this bungee jump. He wanted to do it, he was afraid to do it. He wanted to sort of confront that fear.
Ready? What's the best way to do it?
Biggest bungee jump in New Zealand, 400 feet, which is terrifying.
Dom was the first to take the plunge.
And he did it. It was fantastic to be with him, to see him kind of go through that.
I was really proud that I'd done it because I was really scared of heights.
That's fear now.
Now, it's Orlando's turn.
I did it once and I was like, can I do it again straight away?
None of us were surfers before we got to New Zealand, and that took up a lot of our time. Once we started, Billy was like, you gotta give it a go, and I was like, okay. And then we surfed all the time.
Near the end of production, Sean Astin decided to make a short film about camaraderie, a theme shared by The Lord of the Rings.
I went person to person and asked people if they'd come and show up on Sunday, even though they'd worked for 14 days straight without a day off. And sure enough, everybody showed up.
I'm the first AD.
My name's Andrew Lesney, and I'm starring in Sean Astin's project as the Grizzly Painter.
My name's Andy Sex. I'm assistant location manager and kind of all-purpose runner.
Even Peter Jackson makes a cameo appearance as the bus driver.
Let's roll, camera. Let's roll. And action, camera.
Hey, Elijah! I'm not fit for the job. That's what I've learned.
And action.
Peter Jackson has just asked for another shot. I believe he's taking his bus driving
And
very serious.
quiet, please. Action, Peter.
Cut, print. That's a wrap on Peter Jackson.
He's okay. He's a little bit bossy, a little bit pushy. I was trying to do my best. He almost brought me to tears a couple of times, but I just held my composure, and I hope he's happy.
Everybody, thank you so much. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, you made a dream come true today. Thank you.
Even after years of working together nearly every day, the cast and crew of The Lord of the Rings never tired of each other.
And in fact, I think we probably became closer and closer as the movie progressed. We didn't have family there, and we didn't have any other friends there, so we became our family.
I wish it would go on for another 3 years. I wish it would go on forever. It's going to be a big hole when it's finished, because it has been an intense and amazing experience, and it is like a family. It is like a fellowship amongst everybody.
I feel very proud to leave this behind me and to have been a part of it.
The experience of working on Lord of the Rings, it has profoundly changed my life. The more you struggle in life, the more you grow, and we certainly struggled on that film, and we grew.
It's going to be very difficult when that day finally comes that we'll have to say goodbye, because obviously it will. You know, once the third movie's in the can, that'll be it. And I think it's so far away in our minds right now that we aren't really thinking of that and not necessarily accepting that fact. But eventually we'll have to, and that'll be a very tragic day indeed.
Well, the bar mitzvah stroke premiere party is really hotting up now, as I've been joined by Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan, who are two of the most convincing computer-generated characters in the movie.
Thank you.
Well
Thank you.
Now, I imagine this movie, though, was a less comfortable experience than making what we saw the first one, because you spend the entire film being carried around either by orcs or by a large, strange talking tree.
Yeah.
Our sake.
Yeah, very
what we had.
sore on the bum.
And so presumably you're sitting in some sort of a part of the tree, a proppy part
Yeah,
of the tree.
they built a 20-foot high, moving animatronic kind of Muppet tree. You know, his eyes could move, his mouth could move, his arms could move, so we could interact with it, but it wasn't as animated as Billy's performance. I didn't think that.
Of course, no.
Yeah.
You know, I think a marvellous job from both of you. You've become like the Anton Deck of the Hobbit world.
Oh, what
Sort
a
of,
compliment.
yeah, what you mean is nobody knows which one is which.
I don't have a problem. It's Billy, it's Dominic, it's
Nice
Dominic,
one.
it's Billy. I can do
But
it.
Mary Pippin?
Don't know those two.
Exactly. You
I
see?
can't follow any of the names in
I
that
can't
film.
tell the difference between you and Paul, though.
Yeah, you know what? You and my mother. And his wife. You know, one thing, hey, this is quite a beautiful
Isn't this
moment.
lovely, Jonathan?
3 young men together.
The candles aren't lit.
One of them spoken for. You're not spoken for, I believe. And you,
I'm not.
I've discovered, are the most eligible bachelor in Scotland.
Yes, I am.
According
Come on,
to Scotland on
ladies.
Sunday, the most eligible bachelor in Scotland, #1, beating out Prince William at #3.
Come on!
Who's at number 2?
Come on!
#2 is a guy called Jamie Bing. Never heard of him.
Never
will.
heard of him.
Okay.
Come on.
What is it about that? Do girls just go for the furry feet?
Billy Boyd gets so many offers.
You get a lot of action.
Look, I mean, look at him, man.
Hobbit action.
I just need love, though. I just need love,
Yeah,
Jonathan. You know that.
Is it weird for you, those coming out and talking about the movie now, when essentially I suppose you filmed most of it, what, 2-3 years ago now?
Yeah, although we just recently saw it, and we did go back for, like, pickup shoots. So, you know, we know the subject matter quite well.
And will you have to do more for the third movie? Is there more work to be done, or is that all done and dusted now?
No, from what I hear, we'll probably have to go and do, you know, a couple of pickups, kind of, you know, just kind of tighten it all up. So, which will be great. Get back to New Zealand next year.
I have an idea for you for the fourth film.
Yeah?
You become a couple of rogue cop hobbits.
Right.
Hoppits, I'd call them. Kind of
Hobbits.
like Freebie and the Bean of the Hobbit world, riding around in a cart, because of course it's medieval times, you know, and you could be the kind of rogue one who bucks the system. You'd be
Okay.
the guy who's always trying to rein him in.
Right? No, I like
Great.
that. You're the
Like,
loose
you're
cannon.
like- yeah.
I'm kind of like the lasso guy.
You're like, let's go get them. Let's go get them. I was like, let's get have a donut.
And
Let's
the
get a donut.
And the inspector guy is Gandalf.
All right.
And if
Yeah.
McKellen couldn't keep you guys in line, I don't know who could.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, he's the daddy of them all.
He's a
Ian
wild
McKellen.
man. I can see you itching to get down to that dance floor and start dancing to this marvellous music. Hey.
This and the Wu-Tang Clan, that's what I'm all about.
You know, on a
Whitney
night...
Houston. I'm the most eligible bachelor in Scotland.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston's on.
You know, and if that doesn't work his magic for you tonight, if you don't go home with Mr. or Miss Right, then I don't know when it's going to happen for you.
Thank you very much.
Beckwith's out there. Tamara Beckwith. You really like it, don't you?
Fellas, kick off your shoes, let those hairy feet breathe, go and have a great time. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Good luck. Congratulations on the movie.
Thank
It's
you very
great.
much, Ian.
Well done. Nice to see you.
The sound designer really comes up with the sounds for all the animals and the whole natural environment that makes up the world of the film.
The ones where you sort of hear, you can actually hear the human quality of the screamer good.
Part of our sort of philosophy behind the sounds in this film was to have the sound effects really be as naturalistic as possible. And part of that involves recording sounds in, you know, outdoor natural spaces as opposed to in a studio. And that's been a little difficult in Wellington because it's a small, compact place and it's noisy. So it's tough to find outdoor spaces where you don't have airplanes and cars and people and all that. So there's actually a cemetery just outside of Wellington where we've been going to do a lot of recording. And we have to go there at night because during the daytime you have cicadas and they don't quiet down until the sun goes down. So we've been doing a lot of sort of recording of swords and bow and arrow and screaming in the cemetery. And we've had to repeatedly phone up the police in the area and say, we want to do some recording there tonight, so can you warn all the neighbors that if they hear screaming coming from the cemetery, it's just us. The dead marshes are an environment that lend themselves to incorporating a lot of different vocal elements because it's really this place where all the ghosts of the elves and the other people who have fought in these battles from the past, their souls are sort of trapped in the marshes. And so what we've done in terms of the design is all the sounds that we hear are vocal based. Again, it's these sort of like mud bubbles percolating up that are whispering. So we can have sort of vocal whispers and things that are turned into bubbles, turned into wind, turned into, different sort of mud, slurpy, sloshy elements. And then at certain points, as Frodo starts to be put into this trance, he's hearing the voices of these souls trapped in the dead marshes. The whole environment is infused with these voices, and at certain points they come more to the forefront and really start to suck you in. We knew that with the second movie, we're going to have a whole lot more crowds, and we're going to have to do a lot of recording with big groups. And I was thinking specifically about, well, how are we going to get the sound of 10,000 Uruk-hai? I mean, the obvious and most sort of natural thing for us to do would be to record groups of, as many people as we could get together, maybe, say, 50 people, and record them and just layer them on top of each other. And then, because we're in Wellington, and really all of New Zealand is so behind this picture, we have these sort of unique opportunities of involving the whole community. So we said, well, maybe we can just get into the stadium and record people there. And what we were able to do is get into the cricket stadium during the halftime, and Pete went in and just got this rousing, cheering response and directed over 25,000 people to become Uruk-hai, chanting these words in black speech. It's incredibly powerful to have this many people chanting in unison. For them, they said it was, one of their best halftime events they'd ever had.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined here at the party by, as ever, the gorgeous Liv Tyler. Liv, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You look even more spectacular than last year. You're aging very, very well.
Thank you very much.
Maybe aging was the wrong word there. I don't know. You're maturing.
No, you can still say that because I'm still only 25.
Good.
So
blossoming. That's the
word.
word.
2 years I might get mad at you for that.
What a great film. I enjoyed it tremendously, and your performance I thought was exceptional.
Thank you very much.
Really very powerful indeed. Tricky choice for Arwen that she's facing now. It's essentially love or immortality, I guess.
No, I don't really understand. What about this music? Oh my God.
I feel like
we're on a cruise.
We should be dancing, and then we should go and play the slot machine.
We're taped to the floor by our microphones.
How old is Arwen meant to be?
What?
How old is Arwen meant to be?
Very good question. Right now, I think she's around 3,000.
Wow, she's looking pretty good for her age, isn't she? And now it looks like she might have a bit of competition for Aragorn now.
The other woman.
Yeah. Do you know the outcome? Can we talk about that yet?
Yeah, I mean, their whole story is kind of based on the Eowyn and Aragorn, they have so much in common. They really sort of should be together. They're the ancestor of kings, and they're both human, and they have this kind of flirtation and connection, but it's kind of unrequited love from her point of view. So.
Any chance of a cat fight in the third movie between you two girls?
No.
As we saw in the first movie, you're pretty handy.
You'd have to do that in the piss take version of The Lord of the Rings.
I mean, it must be quite strange for you, I guess, looking at the movie now, because you shot most of it a few years back.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing sort of post-production handle the post-production for each film one at a time. So we've actually done quite a lot of work this year, and we will do next year for the next one. So it's turned out to be a lot more than we anticipated it would be work-wise. So.
But it's, you know, something to be proud of, I'm sure. It's an achievement that you're very happy with. I'm going to let you get back and enjoy that fabulous music. I can see you aching to show us your stuff on the dance floor. But once again, thank you so much for giving us some time this evening. Congratulations on the movie. I look forward to seeing you again next year. It's been said before, and it will be said again for many years to come. But by the minds of Moria, that Peter Jackson is one clever fella.
The trick is that he managed to keep focus over that length of time. I mean, the man has been working on this movie. By the end of it, it will be nearly 7 years.
He wouldn't be any different from anybody else. You couldn't tell him apart from the person who sweeps the floor.
Except he had a special armchair.
Except that he's sitting in front of all these monitors directing sometimes 9 different scenes at once.
I believe after this, people will recognize that he is one of the jewels of cinema in our time.
And there's undying passion, you know. He's still just as passionate about it and loves it just as much and is enthusiastic, even if he's exhausted.
He's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. Okay.
The heart of it is driven by an actor. It starts off with shooting it conventionally. We wanted to get that complete interactivity between myself, Sean and Elijah, and Peter would rehearse the scenes, work out the dynamics of the scenes, the beats and dramatic beats of the scene. And we'd always shoot 2 versions, one with me on camera. I'd wear a white suit, crawl around doing Gollum, and then when we'd got that, we'd shoot a version where Sean and Elijah would basically act to a space. I then go into the studio a year later and react and do every single scene again, putting on a blue suit with dots all over it, and the dots are reflectors, and they kind of refer to joints in my body. And so these dots, picked up by cameras, fed into a computer, and on the screen you can see a computer-generated puppet of Gollum, which I kind of, in effect, have become the kind of puppeteer of. So if I move in real time, it crawls along with me.
Much has been said of how all the actors and crew became one big happy family whilst hacking each other up in New Zealand, but it couldn't have been all fun.
The hours of agony spent in makeup, after makeup, seeing the skin doctor who looks at your emaciated face with its complete skin peel around the eyes and says, "Oh, I can cure this. Just stop doing what you're doing."
It was hard. We don't often talk about how hard it was, do we? I don't know if that's come up as much.
Well, I didn't like being so fat. It's painful to carry an additional 35 pounds of weight.
The jolly time had learning to fight on your knees.
The rest of the hobbits are going out and surfing, and they drag your lard butt out there.
Oh, yes, it was joy all the way around.
I've been joined by the man who's inspired the look of the hobbits in the movie and has also directed the films, Mr. Peter Jackson. Peter, thank you so much for squeezing us in tonight.
Thank you, no problem.
Congratulations on a fabulous second movie in what I trust will be an excellent trilogy. It must be strange for you to see a movie that you've worked on for so very long, and then to have to let it go to the public. Is that a weird experience?
It's strange. You get nervous. It's like having a little child that you're taking to school for the first time, and you've got to say goodbye to them at the school gate, and off they go into the big wide world, you know.
But if that child was Gollum, you'd be quite glad to see the back of him, my legend.
That's right.
Here's a real triumph in the movie. That's a difficult thing to get right. That must have been a worry for you.
Yeah, it was a worry because Gollum needed to be an actor. You know, he needed to act as good as Elijah Wood or Sean Astin. He needed to have real character depth, and so we were a little bit worried about it. But you know, I think we approached it the right way because we cast Andy Serkis, this wonderful British actor, as Gollum, and he performed Gollum for us. And then our amazing CG artists down in New Zealand were able to really match all the muscle structure of Andy's face with the computer face, and you know, and the animation of the face is superb, just getting all the emotion in the eyes.
It's a great performance. I wonder if they're going to have to introduce a new category at the Academy Awards there for you know, best hybrid performance.
I know,
or something.
well, the technology, it just shows you how the technology is kind of, it's creating new dynamics in films, really.
Well, and speaking of dynamics, congratulations on the battle scene at the end. That's got to be the best battle scene I've ever seen in a movie, I think.
Thank you.
It really is a great piece of work. Peter, thank you again. I enjoyed the movie tremendously. I'm really looking forward to the third.
Thank you.
I suspect you're looking forward to it for any number of different reasons.
Yeah, I am.
Being out there.
The third is my favourite of the three, actually.
Really?
I think it's the best one.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. I'm reaching out. Come on, shake my hands.
Thank you.
I see you had your eyes shut, then you dozed off.
Well, I did.
I have that effect on people. Would you like to say we've also managed to snag the other leading lady in the movie, Miranda Otto, who plays Llewellyn. Eowyn, I'm sorry, I'm not very good with the name just yet.
Okay.
Congratulations, I love the movie.
Oh, thanks.
How many times have you seen it?
This is my third time tonight.
Yeah.
Very different tonight. The first time I saw it was just with a couple of actors. Then I saw it with the New York audience, and they're very into cheering, you know, cheering when the White Wizard comes and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
But tonight was a great audience because they got all the humour. Like they got all the stuff with Gollum and a lot of the stuff with John Reese's character. That sort of cleverer.
Your character, of course, she's kind of wistful. There's a sort of there's an impending air of tragedy, I feel. I don't know the books. It's great for me because I'm seeing them all for the first time.
Oh, right. There's more to come in the third film. It's a bit more tragic, but it'll end up happily, I hope.
But you know your way around with a sword as well.
Yep.
And that must be fun. Presumably a lot of work goes into training for that kind of scene?
Yeah, we trained, I think, for about 3 or 4 weeks before I started. But unfortunately, I didn't get to do much more sword fighting in this film. I wanted to do more.
Do we see more in film 3?
Yeah, definitely. I'll get some really fun stuff in film 3.
Congratulations on the movie, it's tremendous. I'm really looking forward to seeing you work in number 3.
I'm looking forward to seeing it too. It'll be a long way off.
Well, enjoy the night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thanks a lot.
I mean, what I like about is the fact that we're doing a trilogy of films. So people have to realise this is the middle chapter.
Right.
But the thing that I like about it is that it's not a sequel. We're not in a situation where the Fellowship of the Ring came out last year and it made a lot of money and everyone said, oh, good, let's make a second one of these. And we kind of figured out what the magic formula was and we kind of rushed off and made another one. People should realise that this was shot as a trilogy. There was 9 hours of movie, all shot at the same time, basically, 2.5 years ago, nearly now. And that 9-hour epic story has been divided into 3 chapters. And this is the second of those 3.
And what's chapter 2 about?
Well, if you've seen the first one, I assume most people have probably seen The Fellowship of the Ring. The story continues, the stakes go higher, as I think any middle chapter of a trilogy should probably. The vice kind of clamps on our heroes and the forces of darkness are closing. And it's a little bit darker than the first one. It's a little bit more intense than the first one. It sort of ups the ante, if you like.
Ups the ante, meaning?
Meaning that the situation in Middle-earth where our story is set, and our heroes are basically attempting to overcome the forces of darkness. Frodo, played by Elijah, has a small gold ring which he has to try to destroy in a volcano. Aragorn, who's played by Viggo, has to do everything in his power to help make it possible for Elijah to destroy that ring. And it gets kind of complicated and it gets harder for our heroes.
You've already started editing the third installment.
Yeah, I have, yeah. The third's my favourite one, so I'm looking forward to that.
Elijah said the same thing. What is it about the third that makes it so intriguing? Other than it's a conclusion.
It's climactic.
Climactic.
It's climactic. It's almost sort of biblical in its climactic sort of scale, and it's sort of over the top, but in a good way. It's highly emotional, and it's going to be my favourite.
Really emotional. I mean, I've seen bits of it, and I can't help but cry every time. I mean, I saw one bit towards the end of the film in the span of, I saw it once, 5 minutes later saw it again and cried again. I mean, it's it's heartbreaking. Wow. What happens to these characters that you have grown to love over, the course of 3 years?
It's an oft-repeated story of how you got this job, but tell us. For those who have
Why not? Regale us with the story
Give us one
again.
more time.
Yeah, it was.
So you made your own audition tape.
I did, as a result of not wanting to be put on tape at a casting office against a white background. I thought, I'll put on the Hobbit costume. I knew Pete was looking for an English actor, and I had to sort of basically prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I could be English. And so I had the odds against me. So I thought, I'm just going to do something completely mad and make it my own and show my passion for the project and for the character that way. And it worked. Went out into the woods and shot the scenes.
What did you see when you saw him?
I saw Frodo.
Frodo. I mean, exactly.
It's interesting because I'd never seen an Elijah Wood film at that point in time. I hate to admit, but it's actually true.
No, that's good.
It's actually true that I hadn't. I mean, out of all the movies that Elijah's done, for some reason or another, I'd never actually seen one of them. And so I'd heard of Elijah's name. Fran Walsh, my partner, had seen The Ice Storm, and she said, no, we should really check out this tape because he's a very, very interesting young actor.
Yeah.
And I just saw Frodo. I saw everything that we'd been looking for, and we'd maybe auditioned 200 Frodos at the point in time. Wow.
saw his
By the
tape.
time you saw his tape.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
did it decide it for you immediately?
Yeah. Yeah. Except we didn't say that to Elijah straight away because we had to go and meet him. Because obviously I've never met Elijah, and you don't want to work with somebody who you kind of can't get on with. So we had to go through the process of meeting with him up in LA and having a chat. Because one of the things with casting this film was the fact that we wanted to get actors who were going to stay with us for 18 months because, you know, an actor couldn't bail out at the end of the first film. They had to stay there for 3 movies. So we wanted to make sure we had, well, you know, basically nice people who were going to be...
You hired him in spite of that meeting.
What meeting?
The fateful
Yeah, they still
get-to-know.
managed to hire me even after,
right. Yeah.
Thank you, Pete.
I thought, well, this is good. I'm going to pretend I'm a Viking, you know, like I used to when I was 7 years old. And,
You wanted to do that since you were 7?
So, well, I didn't realize it, but obviously...
you obviously do sing the movie.
Yeah.
All right.
Here we are now. We've been doing this for a year in Afghanistan. We've been doing it for 11 years in Iraq. Can we not think about this? You know, I read in the New York Times, which you have here. I looked at it yesterday. The front page is... It's not even, should we do this, or is it a question? It's just the countdown, as if it was a holiday countdown for the big war and this and that. And then the science or whatever section, it's bigger weapons and faster vehicles for the military. And then photographs of the women serving. It's all kind of fun. And it's like the people on the ground in those countries who are the ones who are being affected, they're invisible. If they're not American, if they're not European, they don't exist. They're disposable. And more of them have died in the past year than died at the World Trade Center. What does that mean anything? And now just because we focus on Iraq for many reasons, not the least of which is oil.
But not only oil.
And, you know, some kind of vendetta maybe that our president's father has. Who knows what the reasons are? It doesn't really matter.
But if we're going to suggest those two, and I know we want to get on,
Yeah,
and I think
know.
I have some respect for you for the candor and the forthrightness of, I know I do, of your views, and invite you back to this program because we talk about Iraq a lot here.
Right.
You know, before I turn back.
Just a dialogue about it, that's all, you know? I mean, if somebody wants to compare our movie, which is just a movie.
But people say our movie is a pro-war movie, too, which I also have a problem with.
Yeah.
Elijah, you essentially agree with what Miguel's
I
saying?
agree with questioning, absolutely. I agree with asking questions, which I don't know if people do enough in that kind of honest way.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me, an interesting thing is you make some of these political points, the president's supporters would want me to contest each one, and there's no time for me, or if you were making, an opposite political statement in support of the president, then people from the other side would want me to contest it, and we can't do all of that now. Peter as a director, how is he different?
He has more energy than a barrel of monkeys. I would say. I've never...
Elijah, I mean...
I agree with that, but unwaning energy, but focus, you know, but on top of that, a calm that I think made the set incredibly conducive to giving out ideas and for us to perform as actors, and he created an environment that was conducive to creativity on a very wide scale.
Was the experience different than you imagined it might be because you were doing something dramatically different? You were making 3 movies rather than 1. You had a continuum of a story. You had a company of actors that you were getting to know better than you would normally on a set. Did any of that make this experience different?
Yeah, all of those things.
Yeah.
All of those things. I mean, normally you'd work on a film, you know, a filmmaker and actors would get together, and often you're working with strangers. You know, it's not often that you work with people that you've actually worked with before, and you come together for maybe 10 or 12 weeks, and you know, by the end of 10 or 12 weeks, you're just getting to know the person that you're working with. You're just getting to understand them and get a shorthand going, and suddenly, bang, it's over and you go. And in our case, at the end of 10 or 12 weeks, we still had like more than a year of filming still to go, so we just became a really tight-knit unit. I mean, I just enjoyed it. I mean, the best experience of this film has been working with people.
The camaraderie among the people
working
you
with
work
people
with.
that you respect and admire, and being collaborative. Just kind of making it together.
And I think Peter's a prime example of, you know, not everybody's the same. No, I mean in New Zealand, the fact that we shot it there with a mostly New Zealand crew was, I think, an inspiration to us because. I think that, you know, you tell me if I'm wrong, but typically New Zealand, for people in New Zealand, I don't know if it's a result of historically being an isolated country, you know, geographically, and having to make do and pull together. But putting the group first and the individual effort second, I think, comes naturally to New Zealanders, which is also very much what this story's about. And I don't think that most New Zealanders need a September 11th or a London Blitz or an earthquake to put aside their differences and pull together for the common good. It comes a little more naturally to them, I think, and maybe to Australians too, I don't know. But and then that helped us a lot. You always felt that that it was a team effort, and whenever anybody was flagging, you know, there was just this unspoken bond. You always felt that you were supported. And I think this movie, you know, the spirit that you can feel on the screen, beyond any special effect, beyond any, you know, filmmaking flourish, there is this gritty, let's pull our socks up, and if you can't do it, I'll help you do it, and because I know you'll help me do it.
It's the spirit. I think the films really do embody the spirit of a group of people enjoying what they're doing.
Yeah. And
you know, it's that simple.
So would you do this again? Not this particular experience.
Now that's a tricky question.
No, I mean, somebody comes along and says, Peter, you did that so well. I, by the way, have acquired the rights to
this other trilogy.
Oh, my God.
Another trilogy.
Yeah.
And we want you to go somewhere for 18 months and choose your actors and saddle up.
Not for a little while. I want to spend a little bit of time with my family.
So, what is it you want? Do you want to go make a small movie or some personal?
I want to do a few different types of films. I mean, I used to make zombie films once in my youth.
Good zombie film.
I'd love to make it. I'd love to make another zombie film.
Yeah.
He's promised to star in my zombie film.
You want to be in a zombie film?
You're a zombie fan, aren't you?
I'm there.
You are there?
Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. I've got a few ideas of this, but they tend to be smaller movies.
Smaller.
Yeah. I mean, there's different skills you exercise. It's like you know, you don't want to be stuck doing the same thing all the time, and I'd certainly like there's challenges to make a very small drama film, and I'd like to have a go at that one day.
What are the skills? How are the skills different? Just as a director, how are the skills different?
It's just the size and scope of things that you've got to think about. I think it's keeping your eye on the big picture. I mean, the physical aspects of shooting for that long were okay. The mental exhaustion kind of freaked me out a little bit. I used to, at the beginning of the shoot, I used to be someone who could think of 10 things at once and conduct 10 different conversations at the same time. And like, if you spoke to me on the last day of the shoot, after 18 months of shooting, I actually said to somebody, this must be what it's like to be 85 years old, when I can't remember what I did yesterday, and I've got such tunnel vision, I can only think of one thing at a time, because I lost my ability to be kind of, to think of anything more than
fatigue and stress.
It's mental fatigue, yeah. I mean, I was, you know, after a bit of rest, I was all right, but it was kind of weird. It did grind you down.
Is this a career-changing role in film because it's making so much money, because it's gotten such an enormous viewership, and because of 3 of them rather than 1 of them? Peter, do you think? I mean, you know something about
career-wise for me?
Well, for you, sure. I mean,
I know I don't want to change. I just want to keep doing my stuff in New Zealand and do whatever I want to do. I don't want anything different.
It just gives you a chance to make another one, right? You didn't screw this up, so you can make another one.
Yeah, and if I don't screw up the next one, I might get to make my little zombie film.
But for you, I mean, has it made a difference in terms of what you see, the kinds of things that are available?
I mean, my regular everyday life is pretty much the same.
What's your regular everyday life like?
Well, I guess you could say I don't get out much. but as far as something that that I have noticed, and I'm sure you have, and probably you have too, is that there's these big piles of fan mail that you now get, and I'm sure everybody, it's just a function of being part of a popular movie. And you know, I've gotten another job that I would not have gotten, I'm sure, if it weren't for being part of the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, it's purely because of that. Otherwise, someone's not going to take a chance on you in a leading role. So I'm grateful for that. But otherwise, I haven't yet noticed much.
I'm sort of the same in terms of what's happened. You know, I think that there is an increase in things that come your way, but nothing crazy. And in terms of my daily life, that hasn't changed at all. But it's mainly of my own effort. I don't stop, you know, I don't stop doing the things that I would normally do on a daily basis because more people recognize me or anything like that.
You had a lot of people, Peter, come up. I mean, I'm especially thinking of Harvey Weinstein and Bob, and saying, you know, they as you and I talked about before, we went in at length about this
We did.
relationship.
We did at length, yep.
It's a little bit like the war, wasn't it? Sorry about that. I mean, they must be deeply regretful now that they're only getting 5% of the back end.
I don't know. I think, I mean, the reality ultimately was that they could have never have afforded to make the films at the budget level that they had to be made. So I don't know whether regret's quite the right word. I don't think they ever really had a chance ultimately to make them.
5% of $1 billion isn't bad for not having set foot in New Zealand during the whole shoot.
I'm sure they'll be very happy with their 5%.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Was that 5% of the gross or the net?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the detail. I've heard 5%, but I don't know how the deal is structured.
Were you disappointed not to get Best Director last time?
I found that the awards ultimately last year were in a very political sort of. I just found myself in the middle of this kind of these warring factions, and the politics of the Oscars I found to be very interesting, and because I had to come around, you know, they sent me once the nominations were out, and we were kind of like, there was a sense, right, we're all fighting for the Oscar, and I had to come and do a 3-week tour around the States to, like, you know, to promote myself and promote the movie, and if we got nominated again this year, I swore to myself that I'd never do that again, because I kind of think the Oscars are a very simple system where, you know, a very pure system where there's 5,000 people that vote, and they simply vote for the movies that they like the best in any given year, and that should be where it starts and finishes. It's very simple, and that's fine. And whatever film gets the most votes or whatever actor gets the most votes, that's the winner. But the idea of the way that people start campaigning for votes, like you're a politician, I found to be a bit odd. So I promised myself I'd never get involved in it again. I guess one of the key choices that we made very early on was that we wanted to make these films feel historical and feel real, because they were fantasy films, which fantasy for a lot of people means, you know, fairy tale, children's stories, all that sort of stuff. And fantasy movies of the past tend to have an artificial kind of feel to them. They tend to be over-designed and glossy and bright and gaudy and unreal, basically. You know, fantasy means unreal. And I thought, well, no, let's do fantasy means real. Let's say that these are historical. Let's say that the events of The Lord of the Rings took place on Earth 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, as Tolkien himself imagined, and that these have a reality to them, and whether you're an elf or a wizard or a hobbit or a human, you're playing your character with integrity. You're existing in the moment that, you know, that the story is the forces of the story are upon you. You're making decisions based on who you are. Anyway, there's nothing sort of artificial about any of it. It has a certain grittiness, and that was, I think, a key decision we made right at the beginning, which I feel very happy with, because I think it's given the films a quality which sort of sets them apart from other fantasy movies that we've been seen in the past.
All right, but let me just end with this. Was there any significant disagreements about this film in terms of where it should go? I mean, did you have agonizing choices to make about that, or did it just lay itself out directly from the book?
This was a tough film. I mean, the post-production on this film has been very, very difficult. It's difficult because it's structured in a way that's actually quite hard to put together as a filmmaker, where you have 3 storylines, because our characters have, at the end of the first film, our group of characters divided into and went their separate ways. So you have 3 different storylines following different characters, all progressing at the same time, and that makes the editing of the film and the assembly of the film very intricate and very difficult, because you're trying to keep each storyline alive and keep the tension going, and then when you cut to the next group of characters for a while, you don't want the energy to drop out of the group you've just left, and you want to be able to stick with them and then have the energy build when you go back to them again, and doing that through 3 different storylines is hard. So I did find the post-production on this film to be much, much harder than the first film.